Hello, welcome to day 2 of doing spreading drills until Leon Lua comments. Let's just get right into it. I have a 5-minute timer started up. So, yeah, I'll just begin where we left off yesterday and I'll go on a new document if we finish. Madonna's postmodernism is the problematic undergirding of the Baudrillardist simulacra of the 1AC. The F would force us to choose between the subtextual paradigm of discourse and the subsemantic situationism, but both culminate in reality as a paradox. The col- col- collapse and futility of class should foreground our rejection of reality as reality. Cameron and Tilton 17. Neocultural nationalism is a self-supporting paradox. Baudrillardist simulacra denote the bridge between society and narrativity. The subject is interpolated into a social realism that includes truth as totality. Class is intrinsically unobtainable. Bataille uses the textual construction to denote a post-structuralist paradox. The primary theme of Tarantino is a mythopoetical whole. We have to choose between the subtextual paradigm of discourse and subsemantic situationism. The raison d'etre of the participant is significant form. The premise of structuralist socialism holds that sexual identity has objective value. Given Derrida's analysis of the subtextual paradigm of discourse is invalid, the subject is contextualized into a social realism that includes reality as a paradox. We have to choose between the textual paradigm of reality and Lacanist obscurity. Many discourses concerning the subtextual paradigm of discourse may be reviewed. Shoot. Class is part of the failure of truth, said Leotard. However, it is not much class that is part of the failure of truth, but rather the collapse and brutality of class. We have to choose between the post-semiotic paradigm of expression and dialectic materialism. The subject is interpolated into a Baudrillardist simulacra that includes reality as a reality. that uses the term the subtextual paradigm of discourse to denote the common ground between sexual identity and narrativity. If social realism holds, the works of Madonna are postmodern. The affirmative is always already forced to choose between capitalist discourse and textual nationalism, but like Beverly, okay. Watermelon, I guess. The watermelon, affirmative watermelon, is watermelon, always watermelon, ready watermelon, force watermelon, to watermelon, choose watermelon, between watermelon, capitalist watermelon, discourse watermelon, and watermelon, textual watermelon, national watermelon, bow watermelon, like watermelon, Belvedere watermelon, hills watermelons, 9 watermelon, O watermelon, 2 watermelon, 1 watermelon, O watermelon, the watermelon, affirmative watermelon, is watermelon, contextualized watermelon, into watermelon, a watermelon, Baudrillardist watermelon, simulation watermelon, where watermelon, art watermelon, is watermelon, not watermelon, equal watermelon, 2 watermelon, truth watermelon, our watermelon, deconstruction watermelon, rejects watermelon, patriarchal watermelon, some materialist watermelon, theory watermelon, in watermelon, favor watermelon, of watermelon, a watermelon, radical watermelon, neo watermelon, de-sublimation watermelon, that watermelon, includes watermelon, culture watermelon, as watermelon, watermelon, whole watermelon, deoterior watermelon, 17 watermelon, it watermelon, is watermelon, not watermelon, so watermelon, much watermelon, language watermelon, that watermelon, is watermelon, part watermelon, of watermelon, watermelon, dialectric watermelon, of watermelon, reality watermelon, but watermelon, rather watermelon, that watermelon, economic economy watermelon, and watermelon, subsequent watermelon, paradigm watermelon, of watermelon, language watermelon, the watermelon, subject watermelon, is watermelon, contextualist watermelon, into watermelon, a watermelon, capitalist watermelon, theory watermelon, that watermelon, include watermelon, truth watermelon, as watermelon, a watermelon, whole watermelon, Baudrillard watermelon, produce watermelon, the watermelon, use watermelon, of watermelon, Baudrillardist watermelon, simulation watermelon, two watermelon, challenge watermelon, hierarchy watermelon, the watermelon, primary watermelon, theme watermelon, of watermelon, prose watermelon, is watermelon, use this sublimation watermelon, we watermelon, have watermelon, two watermelon, choose watermelon, between watermelon, capitalist watermelon, discourse watermelon, and watermelon, textual watermelon, nationalism watermelon, the watermelon, subject watermelon, is watermelon, interpolated watermelon, into watermelon, deconstructed watermelon, theory watermelon, that watermelon, includes watermelon, truth watermelon, as a watermelon, reality watermelon, if watermelon, capitalist watermelon, discourse watermelon, holds watermelon, we watermelon, have watermelon, two watermelon, choose watermelon, between watermelon, capitalist watermelon, Marxism watermelon, and watermelon, new culture watermelon, semioticism watermelon, if watermelon, one watermelon, explains watermelon, discourse watermelon, one watermelon, is watermelon, face watermelon, with watermelon, a watermelon, choice watermelon, eater watermelon, accept watermelon, dialectual watermelon, pre-cultural watermelon, theory watermelon, or watermelon, conclude watermelon, that watermelon, narrative watermelon, must watermelon, come watermelon, from watermelon, communication watermelon, but watermelon, the watermelon, subject watermelon, is watermelon, contextual watermelon, into watermelon, a watermelon, Baudrillard is watermelon, simulation watermelon, that watermelon, includes watermelon, culture watermelon, as watermelon, watermelon, whole watermelon, if watermelon, one watermelon, examines watermelon, laconism watermelon, absurdity watermelon, one watermelon, is watermelon, face watermelon, with watermelon, a watermelon, choice watermelon, eater watermelon, reject watermelon, pre-dialectual watermelon, libertarians watermelon, or watermelon, conclude watermelon, that watermelon, truth watermelon, is watermelon, use watermelon, to exploit watermelon, minorities watermelon, Foucault watermelon, use watermelon, the watermelon, truth watermelon, patriotical watermelon, similarities watermelon, theory watermelon, two watermelon, denote watermelon, a watermelon, self watermelon, filling watermelon, paradox watermelon, a watermelon, code watermelon, b watermelon, that said watermelon, that watermelon, the watermelon, subject watermelon, is watermelon, interpolated watermelon, into watermelon, Baudrillardist watermelon, simulation watermelon, that watermelon, includes watermelon, art watermelon, as a watermelon, totality watermelon, Baudrillard watermelon, pronounce watermelon, the watermelon, use watermelon, of that electric watermelon, discourse watermelon, two watermelon, deconstruct watermelon, capitalism watermelon, if watermelon, one watermelon, examines watermelon, Baudrillardist watermelon, simulation watermelon, one watermelon, is watermelon, face watermelon, with watermelon, a watermelon, choice watermelon, eater watermelon, accept watermelon, capitalist watermelon, discourse watermelon, or watermelon, control watermelon, that watermelon, truth watermelon, someone watermelon, suppressing watermelon, has watermelon, objective watermelon, value watermelon, but watermelon, the watermelon, fatal watermelon, fall watermelon, of watermelon, pre-dialectric watermelon, libertarianism watermelon, emergent watermelon, in watermelon, port watermelon, of watermelon, saints watermelon, in watermelon, a watermelon, sense watermelon, the watermelon, subject watermelon, is watermelon, interpolated watermelon, into watermelon, a watermelon, pre-dialectric watermelon, libertarianism watermelon, that watermelon, includes watermelon, language watermelon, as watermelon, watermelon, whole watermelon, it could watermelon, could watermelon, be watermelon, that said that watermelon, that watermelon, a button of watermelon, buttons of watermelon, of discourse of watermelon, concerning watermelon, the watermelon saves the watermelon, and watermelon some, watermelon say, watermelon that, watermelon economy of watermelon of watermelon, deconstructed watermelon, sexuality, watermelon exists, watermelon the, watermelon premise, watermelon of, watermelon bourgeois, watermelon simulation, watermelon state, watermelon that, watermelon government, watermelon is, watermelon capable, watermelon of, watermelon truth, watermelon but, watermelon only, watermelon if, watermelon are, watermelon is, watermelon equal, watermelon two, watermelon truth, watermelon differ, watermelon lacan, watermelon uses, watermelon the, watermelon turn, watermelon bourgeois, watermelon simulation, watermelon two, watermelon denote, watermelon a, watermelon self, watermelon supporting, watermelon totality, watermelon the, watermelon destruction, watermelon slash, watermelon creation, watermelon distinction, watermelon is, watermelon also, watermelon evident, watermelon in, watermelon Beverly Hills, watermelon 9, watermelon O, watermelon 2, watermelon 1, watermelon 10, 0, watermelon although, watermelon in, watermelon a, watermelon more, watermelon capitalist, watermelon sense, watermelon. Okay, that was perfect. Time for typewriter. Um, I think it needs to capture this other. I think this can capture this other. Oh god. T space, H space, E space, S space, U space, R space, P space, R space, I space, S space, I space, N space, G space, V space, I space, L space, L space, A space, G space, E space, C space, R space, A space, W space, L space, S space, O space, B space, E space, R space, T space, H space, E space, B space, R space, E space, E space, Steve space, I space, C N space, G space, P space, U space, L space, P space, S space, M space, I space, T space, H space, 4 space, T space, H space, E space, P space, R space, O space, F space, V space, O space, K space, E space, Z space, B space, U space, F space, F space, E space, R space, U space, S space, H space, E space, S space, B space, A space, C, S space, E space, B space, A space, L space, B space, E space, H space, I space, M space, Z space, T space, H space, E space, B space, R space, A space, B space, E space, W space, H space, O space, L space, E space, T space, H space, E space, B space, O space, W space, L space, G space, A space, S space, P space, S space, A space, C space, R space, O space, S space, S space, T space, H space, E space, I space, N space, C space, E space, L space, E space, C space, E space, C space, C space, A space, R space, I space, V space, E space, S space, H space, E space, R space, A space, T space, I space, O space, T space, H space, E space, E space, X space, H space, A space, U space, S space, T space, D space, A space, M space, A space, U space, E space, A space, C space, O space, M space, E space, Z space, Y space, H space, O space, W space, D space, O space, E space, S space, T space, H space, E space, C space, H space, I space, F space, E space, F space, W space, A space, C space, H space, H space, T space, H space, E space, E space, G space, E space, H space, N space, I space, C space, U space, M space, F space, O space, R space, C space, U space, N space, H space, C space, E space, A space, R space, E space, L space, A space, X space, E space, D space, D space, I space, S space, R space, E space, G space, A space, R space, D space, P space, O space, K space, E space, S space, M space, Y space, F space, L space, U space, I space, D space, I space, N space, T space, O space, A space, M space, A space, I space, N space, S space, U space, B space, R space, O space, U space, C space, I space, N space, E space, A space, Z space, C space, I space, S space, C space, R space, I space, M space, I space, M space, A space, T space, I space, N space, G space, S space, T space, A space, S T space, I space, S space, T space, I space, C space, A space, C space, C space, E space, P space, T space, E space, W space, W space, I space, T space, H space, I space, N space, T space, H space, E space, C space, O space, U space, I space, E space, B space, U space, B space, B space, L space, E space, S space, A space, N space, E space, A space, R space, A space, G space, O space, N space, Y space, A space, N space, U space, M space, R space, E space, L space, I space, A space, B space, L space, E space, L space, I space, S space, T space, E space, N space, E space, R space, A space, N space K space S space T space H space E space F space R space I space E space N space D space S space H space I space F space A space F space A space K space E space B space A space Y space S space W space I space C space H space O space U space C space A space P space O space R space T space E space T space H space E space I space M space P space L space I space E space D space T space A space G space R space E space S space C space S space I space M space I space I space D space E space T space H space P space S space E space U space D space O space G space O space D space A space G space A space I space N space S space T space H space E space P space E space R space S space O space T space T H space D space O space R space I space N space T space E space R space P F space E space R space R space E space S space B space E space B space E space I S space I space E space E space T space S space E space Z space O space N space A space E space A space S space E space V space E space N space T space H space S space I space G space H space E S space O space P space O space I S space I space T space E space T space H space E space I space M space B space A space L space A space N space C space E space T space H space E space M space A space I space L space B space O space X space S space. I think it's time. Probably backwards. Yeah. We'll just start with the first card. Operator tag, operator active. Duh into questioning. Be treated. Duh over across the village. Surprising. Duh fear. Illustrator. Duh me school. Duh bill for. Duh dance. Restaurant. Duh dinner. Duh encourage. Wombat. Duh horizon. Hospital. Entertaining. Strike. Cynic. This Oregon. Duh besides freezer. Coke. Duh future. Athletic with and with. Poke the salt mailbox the imbalance the opposite side 7 zone the beside interferes door the person the against God pseudo the inside rest tag implied the porter A without base fake A French the ranks listener level and agony near A bubbles career the within accept statistics discriminating A so routine main into fluid my pokes disregard relax A unfortunate ethnic the watch chief the does how comedy A damage exhaust the ratio her overrides intellect the cross gaspable the whole brave the behind baseball rushes buffer provoke the for Smith pulp breeding dog over cross village suppressing the criterion influential whatever completes pork textual A vegetarian made the link tutor the does keystroke line whatever prevails moderate selected the opposite reverts newsletter does pro standard outside zooms yeah the plagued agenda and concern theme hilarious the should gesture blasting the with confined the summarizes bull objective and ins- inside parades proof a air and tempers thief vast the fantasy the with confined the summarizable a objective and inside parades proof a air and tempers thief vast the fantasy aforementioned the pass plaster the underneath dines bread the intimate the pass screen basket aforementioned plaster the underneath dines bread the intimate the pass screams basket aforementioned the heel blasting the with interferes by biologist clarified the alarm the below reigns solicitor the very the parameter converted the purpose major the fish mic overcome chunk the welfare compelled over terror the forward laser the H Schmidt Lancaster Pro Standard A outside zooms yawn plague the Bishop floppy dog around gossip symbol abstract frozen the representative spot underneath watches box crisp the fruit of top on crossword the finishes door irritating end competitor the throughout value extensive end discharge playground the syndicate strategy adopted the with away post hobby and important the deed every detached ink trick a can temple morning the cages bow a apparatus adjusted the in secretary administration and those the dentist a office compressed the and hammered the the trust center overloaded. Another after shareholder the across viewer the a warm neighborhood the variant the galaxy the chocolate uneasy crosses mob the 15 Gertaz unknown figure under Trump's spell hexadecimal the. View a point person's other to understand to empathetic being by lesson debate that in learn he what is important so is what history and moment extraordinary and its Holocaust nuclear from world thus if have kosher love to letter A in altogether all it putting debates a school high and learned lessons on relying old years before only was I relief of sigh heave world and inspection and you under missiles those which drew crucial love in the morning next worked it you and you to ambassador our Stevenson it like president the altered sequence with proposal his to a greeting up and the letter the on so and proposal your interpret we as and with that quite it proposed he thought not have made crucial proposal your understand as we as who say what I and solution possible of sees few those letter his from extract what I case size other the adopt you which in days debate high school high my technique A adopting positive letter that make two tried I fired B to missiles those for order and get could he crucial love disappointed even or provoked or angered that rather a letter A wrote I if that knew I life my in right to had ever I letter toughest the was it a letter the draft go you okay the said president the that on it joined immediately I and Kennedy Bobby and first the answer and second letter the who ignored that or we the suggested Thompson's Union Soviet the to ambassador former our days of matter in and not and do on the latter code we way know was their new day which Turkey of our missiles NATO take ESU the that insisted Saturday on came that letter second the crisis the of resolution possible a of sees the word there in buried yet unflavorable anything due to promise no but to excuses the now denunciation of full was night Friday and came that one the table cabinet the around debating where we extinguish had been have could earth the whole because mankind of history the in days dangerous most 13 thus calls still historians what the day final the on Sorensen's head with was Kennedy where house housewife the on eyes all Union Soviet and SU the between war nuclear A B two going was there believe we 8 by interviewed Sorensen crisis missile Cuban the during annihilation nuclear from world the save debate policy school high from learned lessons the world the save debate policy. Oh, okay. Too close that came ever world that madness other was a conclusion that to contribute help letter my that proud am I again close that come never has and destruction of brink very from spec step world the Sunday on disclosed have previously not has proposed never he that sequence and form a and moves of exchange proposed cursor was accepted we that fact that success our four reasons the of one succeeded we settlement a for proposal his with consistent as position our accept two crucial induced brazenly could we that gambled we lost he responding or noticing Kennedy without Cuba into missiles nuclear rush secretly could he that gambled recklessly had crucial gamble giant A was it substance of nothing conceded fact and we same the for call hit praising and peace for calling while basis Turkish regarding demand letters second his to reference the Pacific. No made letter our response our and letter his both in same the was result net the that emphasized to trying was I letter his by vision sequence of time the switching simply in pledges Soviet the of implementation permanent and immediate the assured to arrangements and you adequate of assessment the after only undertaken B to draft our under war pledges and actions as you necessary the Cuba invade to not pledge and blockade the of withdrawal U.S. subsequent A for exchange in made being as withdrawal Soviet of offered this described letter my use offense of capable weapons Soviet of all of Cuba from withdrawal Soviet A offering as letter his described we positive B to try carefully I as bluff at parley or words weasel the um, those them understand I as acceptable generally seem elements key the read I as letter your in suggested lines the along not did his solution permanent A for call letter draft my objectives own your supporting as interpreting and presentation sides other the taking technique class debate high, a school high Lincoln and old and borrowed was response draft A drafting to approach my encompass my solution that what of hints vague some and solution peaceful A for calls genuine contain also it but denounce repeated and peaceful and threats warding with bristled letter crucial letter his study we reply presidents the draft to that's down sat I and general attorney the when hands there. Oh shoot, I was like 9 minutes. I didn't even realize. Um, okay, whatever. That was like, yeah. I guess I'll just do spreading now. Yay. Here's a story some recounts what happened. Stars an A. No way might have reported more pressure on me or given greater satisfaction and more in October 1962. One getting last time draft a letter closure laws of most favorable ever draft of 34 episodes and what 12 day was considering called most in 13 days old closure maintained the 10 closure was 12 day was the most in time the time of first puzzle conversion by two so far presenting representing incinerated other and entire war. This was 36 year old attorney general prepared a lesser of getting a join our country getting excellent in the president so one letter another two letters of closure of law project approval zone and sees a plenty of formula is going to move around president acknowledges the second letter. The person gave me a reason I feel the weight of the world my shoulders response fails is sure I serve the next up was wholly unpredictable and almost unimaginable equally one was whether can what able to restrain US military war more caution from their excellent or full amount of assault on Cuba followed by resolution clear shirt ocean of how to know the little internal experience she took my grave letter shoving that no the president to write for the public's voice from guys with team culture insulting the who can never prevent the worst case scenario the missile was not ready to fire two have been prepared but they have been proved there's no reason to put the letter what help is no reason that we're on the brink of nuclear war. That is so that Kennedy control literally held in her world in their hands when it turned around the driving prisoners that we study his letter of warning threats have repeated that was also contained in calls for peaceful invasions in the world of the soldier might come by purchase drafting response what I borrowed from old league high school debate class so you taking on a person to interpreting it so putting it your own rejected my letter comes up permanent solution and along the lines of shit I read as a key element is simple I understand the will work version of more of a positively we just lettering as often offering a Soviet which all Cuba all Soviet one capable of nuclear offensive measures of Soviet which was being made in U.S. which all blockade of pledge not to invade Cuba. The necessary U.S. action and pledge were undertaken for the expansion of adequate UN rules to ensure that media and permanent implementation of Soviet pledges something switching at the time between visual by letter which trying to emphasize that the result was the same as the letter response. Our letter make no references similar to the man in the Turkish base welcome for peace and parenting because conference and we found the nothing was which John Gamble upward of reckless Gamble that king of Russian nuclear missile Cuba that committee no don't respond to key last week Gamble that we can presently into Scotia Gamble position with approval of the first settlement we said but one of the reasons was the fact that except Korea was very came to remove the form with was the never previously disclosed on Saturday how the world was going to drink of the discussion never came close to I am proud of my letter wisdom particularly about matters of war never claim the annihilation. How could he also beat Nixon in the 1960 election? Turns out, A. Improving my experience in high school debate, clearly my writing, protocol, draft, and analyzing my arguments before commenters, Yakins and my materials and the comment because my downward comment of quotation from copying and using more seem more from my cultural rules, Jeffrey school debate because my high school debate coach who taught me with a hallucinating debate of the phenomenal history of election, carrying love debate. In your day, I was debating in high school for culture for politics, for business, source and communities, or legal one move with the good, remember not studying material of the zone, but also analyze the state of the give or take of the being something of that essentially going to say, I wish I had a good deal with debating on our institution than we do now. I think that's and I'll just start from the top again. This person will cause a breeding post on 4. The board of Russia based on the brief with the book as a internal Russia radio that exhausts damage to the comedy help to achieve. But watching the ethnic important ideas of discard of my fluid as a means of routines with beneath status within the corridor bubbles. Your agony, honorable listener rings that flag you a fig with a porter and play tag was outside the show God against a person's during between his own and some of the opposite of imbalance and moral policy. So, the future the code freeze between organ and center with entertaining cosmo whereas in the one language that the restaurant was built for the meal, the illustrator fear to surviving work calls back the treated beef questioning of the entire opposite place is not outside standard program instrument. A the laser force on terror overcome the wolf in the country with visual major affairs and the common appearance the very solicitor brains below arms like for apologies and refuse passing kills the affirmation the passive element of Bradlands under nail plastic. I'm from pass off for more fantasy the fantasy summers and were approval breeze I was just a full summary combined with the blessing his theme because we're in the general play on zoom of the same pro the newsletter reverse of the schools like this moderate period of letter line cleavage is not tutoring for meditation of talk show programs or whatever influence current historical ballot trips of no girls 15. The mountains and misty chocolate sea was the variant of neighborhood warmth of viewer on the show after coming to the center student from the hammer for coming to officers and administration and public apparatus of both occasion of more temple chemistry ink the Jennifer deed and then putting homie on the stairs away from adaptive strategies to give the playground the stars to glow some value throughout the competitor returning door finishes the course over the top of a fruit of ribs on the watch underneath his bottom representative on sort of the symbol of the gods around the floppy bishop. Alright, I think that's time. So, yeah, day 2 is over. See you on day 3, guys.